Hey, and welcome to the Neurodivergent Musician Podcast, where I explore the world of neurodiversity and musicianship. I'm your host, John Hart, along with Luna, my guitar, and today I'll be talking about social cues. Each episode is broken up into a traffic format where I'll share insights in the red section, improvised babble in the amber, and recommendations you might find handy in the green. So let's head on over to the red section for more insights. So what are social cues? Social cues are the subtle non-verbal signals, gestures and cues that people use to convey information during social interactions. They serve as an unwritten language guiding us in understanding others' feelings, intentions, and emotions. While neurotypical individuals tend to grasp these cues instinctively, some of us with neurodivergent traits might find them more challenging to interpret. It's like trying to follow a musical piece with unfamiliar notation. Facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, these elements are all part of the symphony of social cues. And as neurodivergent musicians, our brains might process information differently, and that's okay. Recognizing and acknowledging these differences is the first step towards embracing our unique perspectives. So why are social cues important? Well, social cues play a pivotal role in our social lives. They help us build connections, establish rapport, and foster a sense of belonging. Just as harmony and rhythm are essential in music, social cues create a harmonious flow in our interactions with others. When we can pick up on these cues, we're better equipped to respond appropriately, paving the way for deeper, more meaningful connections. And additionally, understanding social cues can prevent misunderstandings and conflicts. It's like staying in tune with each other during a group performance. When we're attuned to the emotions and needs of those around us, we can navigate social situations with grace and empathy. But the awkwardness of missed social cues can be awkward. Despite recognizing the importance of social cues, we can't deny that missing or misinterpreting them can lead to awkward and uncomfortable situations. And as neurodivergent individuals, we might struggle to grasp the intended meaning behind certain gestures or facial expressions. This can inadvertently lead us to respond in ways that are out of sync with the social context. Imagine being at a social gathering, attempting to engage in a conversation, only to miss the subtle cues that indicate disinterest or discomfort in the other person. Unaware of these cues, we might continue talking or fail to notice the change in the subject. This misunderstanding can result in the other person feeling unheard or frustrated, while we're left wondering what went wrong. Similarly, in a group setting, we might find ourselves unintentionally interrupting others due to the difficulty engaging when it's appropriate to talk. These situations can be disheartening, leaving us feeling isolated or judged for not adhering to the unspoken rules of social interaction. So what can we do to overcome social cue challenges? The awkwardness that stems from missed social cues can be disheartening, but it's essential to remember that we can navigate this challenge with self-awareness and perseverance. Number one, we can use self-compassion. It's crucial to practice self-compassion and remind ourselves that everyone faces their unique social struggles. Being neurodivergent doesn't make us inadequate. It just means we interpret the world differently. Number two is to educate others. Sharing our experiences with close friends or family can lead to greater understanding and support. By explaining how social cues might be challenging for us, we enable them to be more patient and accommodating. Number 3 is pause and reflect. In social situations, taking a moment to pause and assess the overall atmosphere can be helpful. Observing others' interactions might offer insight into the appropriate response. Number 4, ask for clarification. There's nothing wrong with seeking clarification if we feel uncertain about someone's intentions or emotions. People appreciate honesty and willingness to understand better. And number 5, practice and seek support. Engaging in social interactions regularly and seeking support from social skills groups or therapists can help us develop and refine our understanding of social cues. So how can we embrace our unique selves? Well, navigating social cues might not come naturally to us, but with patience and practice, we can improve our social interactions. Just as we embrace our unique melodies when making music, let's embrace our neurodivergent perspectives. Our unique ways of thinking and experiencing the world contribute to the beautiful symphony of human diversity. Remember, neurodivergent musicians, it's okay to stumble and hit the occasional wrong note in social interactions. What matters is willingness to learn, grow, and continue composing the music of connection with empathy, kindness, and understanding for others and for yourself. So that is it for the insights. We're now going to head on over to the amber section for some improvised babble. See you then. Okay, so we're now into the amber section. I'm just going to go through my improvised thoughts and stories. And when I think of social cues, it can happen obviously in many different areas. But the first sort of 2 things that I think about is when I'm doing, a school routine. And, most school routines have an element of small talk. And I think with small talk, I kind of I get so wrapped in my head about it because everyone else doesn't really care in regards to what I say and how I feel it and things as well, because we've all known each other for years. But there's a sense for me where there's a barrier where I don't know the difference between, sometimes like certain lengths of conversations, how people are feeling, and how I can sometimes see if their head has dropped or they might have some look on their face. But if I'm really enthusiastic or I'm really positive or I'm feeling really down or anything that's about, I can't clock any of that. I need to almost be in this kind of strange, balanced. It's not strange, really. It's just like that normal day where it's almost like British weather. When we have days of rain and we have days of extreme sunshine, we have that kind of middle ground where we're like, this is quite a nice mild temperature. I can deal with this. But more often than not, if I use the weather analogy, I'm sort of walking into social situations either feeling too hot or too cold or too rainy or too snowy, too sleety, too thunder and lightning, or whatever it is. And the weather hasn't really aligned in my head, so I'm not able to sort of clock what's going on with people. So I either become really isolated, and I isolate myself because I don't really want to have sort of social connection, or I kind of start talking, but then I start going and jabbering on about what I'm doing, or, I might not pick up on that two people are talking and they're having a hard conversation. I just bundle in with like this bundle of energy, and, I could say something awkwardly, and I'm really concerned about that sometimes because, it's that kind of, I've put my foot in my mouth, or I've said something stupid. And the worst cases actually is when we've gone out with friends and I've just been drinking loads and loads and loads and I haven't eaten. And do you know what? I'm so transparent and I come out with stories, some of the shit I've done in the past because of my sort of impulsive self. Again, I'm going to go into an episode of impulsive stuff and it's going to be quite interesting with the amber section of the stupidity that I've done. But that stuff comes out, but then I'm very quickly realized that I might have said something or I might have done something. And then there's just this element of regret afterwards. And I used to have a friend and we used to maybe pop along to a cafe. She's a parent, I'm a parent. And then we used to just talk. But afterwards, we'd end up sending each other texts kind of saying, sorry if I said something, sorry if I did this, sorry if I did that, and then just apologize and saying sorry, because we're kind of we're fearful that we've overcooked a conversation. And I always feel there's a fine line between, especially with social signals and social things, I've undercooked it and then I can very quickly overcook it. And this is why I like to just end up on my guitar, or I, end up doing my business, or I end up watching films and TV because I'm like, this is a safe place. I'm not going to go and do something stupid. And I think the older I've got, that kind of those social cues have got harder. And, I used to work in customer service. I used to work in, in supermarkets and all kinds of places. One of my first jobs was McDonald's or whatever it is. So I learned how to mask that and be, on a customer service line, which is why when I do my music and I go and play events, it's okay in some ways. Your smile is your business card. So you go and socialize and you kind of, it's programmed. But if you're going down on a personal level and I don't have a guitar in front of me, I haven't got my musician hat and I've got my natural hat on, that I feel very vulnerable. And I know a lot of people have, it's almost like social anxiety. They have, and it's mainly because trying to gauge the situation. And I can have, it's like last week I talked about sensory overload, and I kind of almost have social overload as well. So if I'm feeling that with social overload, then I can't even work out what the cues are. And, I don't know. I don't think this is coming from an ADHD point of view. I think this is coming from an autistic point of view. And it's almost like you can go into those situations, and I find it really hard to clock people's emotions, clock people's feelings. And I find it really hard to read people, to look them in the eye, or if there's something really hard, really deep, you've got to have talk about or chat about. I don't look anybody in the eye. I completely look away. I end up freezing and I'm just like, this is awkward. But that doesn't happen all the time. I know that in myself that's happening because sometimes I've heard a tone, and that's what can be, you can cross over to the RSD side of things. It's why in some ways, I'm able to go to my kids a lot faster than I'm able to go to adults, because I don't feel children as are multidimensional. And I sort of feel, when you become an adult, you've got to become an adult and you've got to speak a certain way. You've got to do things a certain way and you can't say this and you can't say that. And it's all bollocks, really. And, we've all got an inner child inside of us. And then we've all sort of told that we've had to grow up. And I think, if I go and see my kids, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I miss things and sometimes I say stupid things. And I'm like, is that social cues? Is that impulsiveness? Is that just how I'm feeling right now? I don't know. And, you know, when I came and I was talking about these points here, you know, you talk about self-compassion. I sometimes find it really hard. I used to find this really hard, and I used to beat myself up if I wasn't able to be my authentic self, or just be myself in a conversation with someone else. Because I've said some things in the past. I've done some things in the past when I'm in a conversation, and it's almost like I've either got a look or I've got a, you know, you're weird, aren't you? And I'm like, what the fuck did I say? What did I say? And I might have done this with my students. I might have been talking loads and loads and loads and loads and loads, and I've really like gone, oh, hang on a minute. I'm in a guitar lesson right now. Why have I just done a 3-minute speech? And they're my students are looking at me going, what are you doing? And I'm like, wow, this happens in so many areas. And then I have to almost, it's not as extreme taking yourself to a dark place, but I have to go and put myself on my guitar and things as well to get rid of those sort of intrusive thoughts of like, oh, why did you do that? You're so stupid. Da 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 da. Like, and so self-compassion, you know, I've been able to get over it a lot quicker. I think if you're feeling really bad, and you can sort of rise above it and you can go to a bird's eye point of view, I would go to the things that make you happy, you know, whereas, you know, an instrument or a piece of music, or you go and watch your favorite TV show episode or whatever it is, or, you know, something that can lift you out of that, and then just dust yourself off and then go again the next day. If it starts to sort of, you know, some of these things, when I used to go to events and I was so worried about going to them, and then I shot myself in the foot and I overcooked it, it would stick in my mind for a whole week, and everyone around me would be affected by it. But they don't really know, you know, if there's an event coming up, it could take me half a week. Or actually, if there was an event, like a social event, that was coming up, you know, we've got one coming up actually next week, and, you know, all my wife's family is going to be there. And I already starting to think about it, and everything inside is already starting to rev, because I'm like, I know they know me. They've known me for like 17 years, but there's still social cues. There's still all these things that you're like trying to clock. And it's almost like when I go there, instead of clocking the social cues, I'm clocking the exits, and I'm clocking where the toilet is, and I'm clocking where the outside is, so I can just go and hang around with the kids. And, you know, and it makes it come across I might be a big kid, but it's not. It's because I just need safe places, because I might have spoken to several people, but if I wear that out, all that social stuff and social cues and social conversation, all that sort of stuff, and interaction and anxiety, it can really wear me out, and then I can say something stupid, or I can do something stupid. So it's just sort of being aware of that, and not beating myself up afterwards. Educating others, that's tricky. It depends on where they want to be educated. And that's kind of why I've done this podcast. I might have family and friends. And if you're listening to that, family and friends, hello. Thank you so much for listening. I have found with this podcast that I think I put up a post on socials, and I had one friend, you know, I've known since university, and we're both musicians. And I think, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I put up something online about the way I am in conversations. Oh, no, I know what it was. Don't ask me how I've been. Because the problem is, if you ask me how I've been, then I will go into a complete rabbit hole, and I completely discard everything that you are experiencing, everything that you're doing, because I need to tell you the story of how I've been. And that could have been a whole year. And you're like, crap, do you know what? I didn't ask for you to tell me your life story. And I've heard people say that before. Don't tell me your life story. So I'm like, well, rephrase the question and ask, how was your journey up? Or how was the hotel that you're staying at? You know, how was this morning? And that allows me just to go around, you know, a few houses and not a whole year of stuff. And I've had to ask people like, oh, how have you been? since everything happened, with the crisis and stuff. I'm like, crap, that's a few years. And I'm then going into the land of, I'm going to miss social cues here. I can't rein myself back. And, or someone might have a really concerned, like that concerned face. And I'm like, they might be just concerned from what I'm talking about, but I think they're concerned about, they're looking at me in a certain way. I'm like, oh, have I said something wrong? And then I'm like overthinking it. So educating others, I'm doing it subtly as best as I can. And I think that's the best way sometimes, because there's some people who will have fixed mindsets. And there's some people, maybe certain males from other generations who have that mindset and stuff as well. And they just like, I don't want to talk about that. No. It's too, I used to grow up working in factories, and I remember having spiky hair, and like one of the guys literally come past and he was like, oh, you're gay. I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's so backward. And that was just for simply having spiky hair. So, trying to talk about real issues, whether it would be, it could be gender, or it could be mental health, or it could be, these neurodivergent things, ADHD and other things. You kind of, it's weird. You're sort of seen as weak. And I know that's a generational thing. And also it's a sort of something that a lot of people are brought up with. And I think that's where we're kind of, when you're trying to express these things, you can't really say this stuff to them. Like I'm going to educate you on this sort of stuff as well. And this is how I want to be treated. It's just like, that's not how the world works. You can't tell other people how they feel, what to do, and how they can do it. I just think there's just subtle ways that we can do things. And that's why I want to express it on this podcast. And it's just like, I'm not slamming anyone. I'm not talking about anyone. I'm not doing anything apart from just talking about my own experience with this. And, you might not suffer with social cues, but you might be someone who does. And you might hear this going, yeah, I do have that, but actually I have it at a slightly different angle. Or I've had social anxiety, overwhelm, overload. I miss social cues. And I think the social cues come before the social overwhelm and overload and anxiety, because conversations with others, we just don't know where it's going to head. And that's just fear in itself. We're just like, shit, am I going to say something which is going to then point in the right direction? Or am I going to say something openly and honestly, but then I'm going to feel I'm going to be interviewed. I'm going to be questioned after question after question, and I can't answer it because I don't have the information. So it's just like, well, do I just keep my trap shut? Do I just keep away? And I don't want to do that. I don't want to isolate myself from others. Number 3, when I was talking about pause and reflect, in social situations, taking a moment to pause. I think you can get moments of that. You can get little pockets of that. And most of the time, this is why I've got to take myself to the bathroom. I've got to go and walk outside, because I can't actually do it in the social situation. And I can't look people in the eyes sometimes. And I try to do it because I'm like, right, train yourself, John. Try and do this. Try and see how long you can keep eye contact and clock people's, body language. But again, it's whether the weather is right in my head. And if it's not, then I'm missing all sorts of things. And with pausing, reflecting, I think I learned something really, recently. I think I mentioned it in a previous podcast episode about the double breath, and you can, breathe in and then you breathe through your nose. And sometimes there's that. Sometimes I take noise cancelling headphones and put on the sound of the sea. Sometimes I will sing to myself, and then that will be another sort of way of reflecting. Sometimes, they can talk about it sometimes when you go like to not an interview, but you'll have a business meeting, and then you picture everyone naked, or what, like that's what they see on the stage and everything as well. It's not something I probably want to, I don't want to do that in personal social situations. But I think it's those kind of, it's along the same lines of trying to find your own coping mechanisms, other ways to pause and reflect and kind of see a bird's eye point of view of all of this. No one's out, you know, unless you're in a drunk situation in a pub, you know, if someone's out to get you. But most of the time, if you're around family and friends and things as well, you know, there was a one, I call him an Uncle Knobhead, like Peter Kay used to call his uncle, and he used to be obnoxious and he used to say some stupid shit. But you know, that's one in like 100 people. And I used to have social anxiety around him. And I think a lot of people did. But the majority of other people, you know, they also might have really strong opinions, really strong thoughts and things. And I find it really hard with strong opinions because I don't want to go into that rabbit hole. I want to stay in neutral as best as I can, which might, to some, they like, oh, that's just weak. You don't have, you know, strong opinions on certain things. It's like, that's absolutely fine. And I just try and go, cool. All right. Yeah. You know, and that's not me sort of pandering or sort of backing down. It's just like, do you know what? I'm not going to go and rise to that. So I think there's loads of different situations when we're trying to think with social cues. You know, I can rub someone up the wrong way. I can rile them up really quickly without even knowing it. And I'm like, crap, how did that happen? What did I say? Was it my tone? Was it this? Was it this? Was it snappy? Was I impulsive? And it's in certain ways is why I use mechanisms like my guitar and chat GPT for bouncing off ideas and revising stuff, because there's no emotion in it. And I think when the emotions are involved with other people, you're just like, shit, I don't know what's happening right now. It feels like there's an attack going on. And that's why sometimes, like the other number 4 is like ask for clarification. There's nothing wrong with, you know, seeking clarification. So you can ask extra questions, but it depends on if you've got the confidence to do that. And, you know, if we're trying to work out social cues and we've already got social anxiety, I mean, you could probably hear this podcast and you're like, am I listening to John on double speed right now? Because he's speaking bloody fast. And do you know what? This is how I like to naturally speak. I like to speak really, really fast. Sometimes when I'm passionate about it or I'm trying to kind of express something that I'm emotionally connected to. And I think I came up with this like hypothetical theory about time dilation and in regards to neurodivergence. So when someone with ADHD meets someone else with ADHD and they start talking, the speed of their conversation will actually balance in the rhythm. And then actually when they're talking to each other, it's almost like they're speaking at normal speed. It's almost like when one of the films, when the Flash and Superman start having a race against each other, but they both run so fast that they actually end up, you know, on par with each other, and they're not running fast at all. They're actually stuck in normal speed. And that's what I kind of feel with some neurodivergence. So when I start talking really fast and no one understands a bloody word I'm saying. Some also people don't understand me in the way I talk. And other people say, oh, you know, might say that I'm quite creative in the way I talk and the way I express things and I can be articulate and things. But other people are just like, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean? Everything as well. And they're asking those questions, but there's no curiosity around it. But that's a rabbit hole, obviously. But asking for clarification is a tricky one sometimes. And practicing and seeking support, you know, engaging in several social interactions. I think that's hard when we do it personally. If people are asking you how you are personally, because you can get very drained very quickly. If you do it on like, you know, a business sense and you're networking and you're like, right, I'm in business right now, you can kind of switch it. But if you're trying to be authentic all the time in regards to like that conversation, my battery can get really, really low because, you know, there's a lot of emotion built into it. And especially when they're coming towards talking about stuff that really matters to me, sometimes I can be so passionate. And then it's like almost you've got an app on your phone and then you've got 80% battery, but that particular app that you put on is like, it's so exciting, but it wipes out your battery really, really quickly. And then you overuse it. And that's what happens, I feel, in my sort of social situations. I've come in and I've already got sensory overload, or it's starting to build. So when I'm getting sensory overload and I'm like, oh crap, my head's in stereo right now, I can't tunnel vision on someone or tunnel vision on some others. You know, it'd be like if I go to a disco, or if I go to a night out and there's flashing lights and there's loud music and we've got friends out, and it's just like, this is the worst. And it's kind of why I don't want to party for my birthday, or I don't want, loud things anymore. I used to have it, but I used to mask it all with alcohol and just get horrendously drunk. But I used to take myself away. I never could stay in the same place. I could never be as someone who stands in the audience listening to loud rock music. I used to be the person who could do it on stage because I could jump around and everything as well. And it's interesting when you look back on that, you're like, yeah. That's why I'm an acoustic musician now. I love it. So that is my improvised babble. I've set up a Facebook group called the Neurodivergent Musicians. Please come and head over and let us know if you've got any issues with social cues, if you've got any coping mechanisms for it, and just come and have a chat with us. It's slowly building, and I like to build it more because I want to have a community of neurodivergent musicians. So that is it for the amber section. We're now going to head on over to the green section for a recommendation. See you then. Okay, so we're now into the green section. I'm going to keep this one quick as we are in the 30-minute mark. But if you don't have a partner who can, kick you in the shin if you're starting to over talk, if you're, no, not really. I used to have that when I used to talk loads. And again, I'll go into that in the improvised babble episode that I'll go into. But I think the best thing is to text someone before you're going into a social situation. And, so I think the best thing you can do is, if you're going into a social situation and you're not feeling great, maybe you're feeling very anxious, you're feeling this, be very open. Or you can have a keyword or a, buzzword, whatever it is, and you can text that to someone. I was trying to test out at one point a traffic light system that I've been using for this podcast. And it basically indicates what mode I'm in. And, red will be I'm in a really low mood, and then amber will be I'm in the middle mood, and then green will be I'm okay. And if you've got friends or if you've got family or whatever it is, when you're going into that social situation, you can kind of go, I'm feeling this right now. Just wondered if you could just look out for me if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed and I can't clock the cues. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to know. It just means that one person needs to know. In my case, it could be my wife. And, as my kids get older, it might, it could be one of them. I don't want them to feel the responsibility of that. I just want them to go, it's okay. I hold daddy's hand, and then we can then go to a different location. Or my wife will come over and kind of go, put my hand on my shoulder. That might be a signal, or she'll hold my hand, and that's a signal of support. And, she could use a finger to touch the hand or whatever it is to go and indicate, are you okay? Do you need to go and take a break? And it's not no one needs to verbally say anything to embarrass you or to say anything. And I think if you've got a really close friend or close family member who's not judgmental, who's not critical, who's not anything as well, just purely going, right, you need to take a time out for a minute, but not in a teacher, mother, or authoritative way. It's more in a nurturing way where, if you don't take a quick power nap during the day, you're not going to be able to get through the evening. And it's the same sort of things with social situations. If the battery's running low, you need to go and plug in for a little bit and then build up 10% so you can then maybe go and have another conversation. Or, you know, maybe someone else takes the rein in the conversation and you just sit back. So you can try lots of different things. And this is why I like to use fidget toys. So, you know, I have my Rubik's Cube and I have my loops. I have maybe my keys, and it's just something that I can, you know, put in my hands if I'm starting to feel like, do I know what's going on? And then maybe write down some social cues that you're not aware of. And then, you know, you could go to ChatGPT and sort of speak it out with ChatGPT, because it's not judgmental, it's not critical. So it doesn't criticize you. It just spouts out some information and maybe some advice. And you can go and speak to a therapist and others and CBT and all these other things to be able to work around that. But again, I found with therapy, coaching, CBT, whatever it is, they're weekly sessions, and I need something that's there with me all the time. So the ChatGPT, they just brought out an app. So I have that on my phone, and I just go into there going, I'm feeling this right now. I'm trying to sort of clock this. Can you just give me some advice? Oh, brilliant. I might use one of those. But just test out what's best for you. And, you know, a key thing in the social situations is drink water, hydrate yourself as much as possible. If it's a really hot day, just strip down to just a shirt or t-shirt. Just make yourself as comfortable as possible. And, you know, we will all try and navigate these things as best as possible. If you really feel that these social situations are going to dent your mental health that day because the way you're feeling, just don't go. You know, it's not worth it. And I've had these sort of things before, even with like loved ones. And, you know, I've just finished the end of term here, and my children have gone to see my other family and with cousins and things. And I could have gone, but I'm not in the right place at the moment because I'm trying to sort out stuff for summer. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like I'm that distant person when I'm around them. And it comes across as I'm just disjointed. I'm not very happy, but actually it's just because my brain is elsewhere. And I'd rather just be here at home and them enjoy themselves. And so that's a decision that you can make. And the more times you do this, everyone around you will accept it. I'm not a moody bastard. I'm not a, you know, antisocial twat. I'm just trying to protect them from, you know, maybe having daddy or a husband who's just not in the right place, and so they might not listen, or they might come across as a certain way. And for myself, so it's just that I need to take a breather and just be able to listen to the nature or whatever it is and stuff as well. So hope you get something out of that. Please let us know how you're getting on with the podcast. Hope you are enjoying the highlight episodes on Fridays. I thought I'd put them together because, you know, one, people are on the go, and you might not want to listen to 30-minute episodes to an hour and a half with the guest episodes. And also for neurodivergent individuals, I love listening to bite-sized episodes. I love between 5 to 15 minutes. So that's why I made it 5 minutes, and they're little trailers for the older episodes as well. So go and check them out if you haven't already. And thanks so much for tuning in. The numbers are really, really climbing, and I think we're now into like 20 countries around the world, and this is in late July 2023 at the moment. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next episode. Cheers. Take care. Bye.